Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, today I have Dave Valentine on the line, and he's founder of Avadel Agency. Dave, welcome to the show.
Adam, so excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dave. So excited to learn more about how Avadel Agency is helping businesses scale and how you're helping to generate appointments and really be the fuel that on the fire of many entrepreneurs out there that are looking to grow quickly. So excited to get into that. But before we do, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Dave, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Dave, what mission matters to you?
Yeah, at Avadel Agency, we help ethical and conscious business owners and entrepreneurs grow and scale their companies.
That's awesome. Love bringing mission-based individuals on the line to share, why they do what they do, how they're doing it, and really what we can all learn from it and how we can all grow together from that information. Awesome. So I guess let's just go a little bit earlier in your career in general before we jump right to Avadel Agency. Like how did you get started in business and as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so when I was 10 years old, Adam, I started selling candy out of my backpack, and then that escalated to like selling erasers and pencils and pens. I remember going to my dad and asking for a $5 loan to go buy those items. And he being a good entrepreneurial father and encouraging me in that space said, sure, let's do it. And I ran that business from 10 until I was 13. I picked up a lawn mowing business, and then I started my first grown-up business when I was 25. I knew I had a kid on the way. We knew that we were like in this momentum towards launching the business. And about a month before the business launch, I found out that we were pregnant with our first kid. So my wife and I were like, oh man, now I really have to make this work. And I started a catch-all digital agency. I'd been working in marketing. I'm going to date myself, Adam. I was doing marketing in MySpace and Friendster.
Wow.
and building out websites and doing video editing and doing all this stuff. And then I really started to hone in on digital advertising. And in my early 20s, I became someone that was just known for a guy that works hard and is pretty sharp in the space. And so I was doing marketing in-house, and I thought, well, why not just go start an agency? So 25, I really had no idea what I was doing. I'd never signed a client before. I had run a bunch of marketing campaigns, but I'd never done it from the agency side. I'd never worked at an agency. And so I started this company and kept working my other job full time during the day. So I'd do that 9 to 5, and then I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and I'd work the business until 7:30, 7:45, hop in the shower, get dressed, go to work, be at work. Sometimes I'd actually work on the work that I was hired to do for that company. A lot of times I'd be working on the business in the background or something, and then I'd get in the car, drive home, see my wife, see my newborn daughter, hang out with them until like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then I'd go back to work from 7:30 or 8 until 10, 11, and then I'd work just every Saturday, Sunday, 9 to 5 on the business. And so I did that for 18 months. And then eventually I was able to take a modest $30,000 a year salary 18 months in. And then we grew that really quickly, honestly. Once I was able to go full time, we scaled that sucker pretty fast. And 4 years in, we had a 7-figure agency, and I was actually making real money. I was making more than $30,000. And I went to my doctor for a routine checkup, and they did a stress test. And I came back a week later, and he said, hey, Dave, how do you know you're going to have a heart attack? And I was like, I don't get the question, doc. And he goes, you're the most stressed out person we've ever tested. We've tested over 4,500 people. You're 29. If you don't change what you're doing with your life, wow, you're not going to see 40. And so that was a real wake-up call. I went, man, I've got this successful, but only 7% of companies in the country make 7 figures or more. And so I have a successful company by all standards. I'm making good money. Everything's going well. And I had done it in such a way that I was killing myself. And so that put me on a journey not only to think about taking care of myself better, so I started to incorporate some helpful self-care practices. It also led me to a journey of, well, how do I build a business or businesses that don't need me to be so involved, that I can actually just be the guru on the hill instead of being the person that every client wants to talk to, whether things are going great or things are not going well. We're just rolling out a new initiative. They're like, hey, Dave, can you be in New York City? And 2 weeks from now, we'll pay for your plane ticket. We'll pay for your time to be here. We need you to fly. Hey, can you be here in Knoxville for a board meeting? We need you there all day for 8 hours. We'll pay for your plane ticket. We'll pay for your hotel. We'll pay for you to be there, but we need you there. So getting out of that, hey, Dave's the guy, to, at this point I own 8 different companies. Avadel is the biggest one. And I am able to do it all remotely, and it's absolutely life-giving, and I'm much healthier than I used to be. So that kind of brings us to today.
Man, that's awesome. I love it. It's a great story, and I love that you went through, some of the pains of being an entrepreneur. So it seems to me like when you're working with clients, what I like about working with companies like yourself and like what you're doing at Avadel Agency is that when you're working with somebody, what their pain points are. I don't mean specifically, but the themes, what they're going through, sometimes the questions behind the questions that they're not asking, and maybe some of the things that are going on in their lives that even aren't even related to business because you've been through it, right? So you're seeing it, and like what helping them scale and what like kind of giving them the right advice can do to not just grow their business, but also to add to the quality of their life. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, what's interesting, whenever I was early on in my entrepreneurial days, I'd go to networking events, and I could always tell who had a 7-figure business and who didn't. The way that I could tell was people that had 7-figure businesses or more, they were very casually engaged in conversation. They would have a very deep, meaningful conversation with a couple people. They may see some friends they'd engage. The people that were not doing 7 figures, they would go to those networking events, and I was one of those people for a long time, and they would be hustling. How many people can I talk to? Is that a good connection? That person looks interesting. How can I connect with all these people? And one of the things that I've found, Adam, is that until you hit 7 figures in revenue for most companies, not all, but most, you are in this feast and famine mode. What I mean by that is everyone is existentially terrified of, am I going to pay my bills next month? And it's a really rotten spot to be in. It's not fun. And so one of the things that is really powerful when you have a company is if you have a reliable lead generation source, you now know, hey, every month I've got this lead generation engine. It kicks out 200 leads every month or 150 meetings every month or whatever it is, and I can depend on that because that's a lead measure, right? And a lot of that is really just making it so that if you're getting that number of leads, you have a defined audience and you have a simple message. Too many people, Adam, in my line of work, they come to us and I look at their website and I go, I understand that you're a technology company. I literally don't know what you do. And they're like, well, could you not tell that we solve problems? And I'm like, I can tell. I have no idea how you solve my problems. I have no idea if you have any return on investment. I have no idea. There's just no way for me to understand what you're doing. And so a lot of what is really, really helpful is when you're less than 7 figures, hey, you got to set that lead generation source. If you have your marketing on point for that, you're going to sleep a little bit better. If you figure out sales on top of that, you'll sleep really well. Because one of the best problems to solve in my experience has been, hey, if you have a good enough product at first, not over time, but at first, you're like, hey, I've got a minimum viable product here. We have this language for software development all the time. We should be using it for services as well. I've got a minimum viable product. I'm going to sell it really inexpensively as an alpha or a beta program. And what I'm going to do is figure out my marketing, figure out my sales. If I can figure those out, now I have the cash flow to be able to figure out improving my product and in turn increasing the price. Now I've got a much more valuable product and I've already got the marketing and sales figured out. And if I can increase the value of that product because marketing and sales is already working, now I've got the time leverage And again, this is what happens when you get to seven figures. I'm not concerned existentially about paying the bills anymore. I'm worried about, or I'm thinking about, how do I grow the company? How do I grow my own legacy? What's the next step? How do I make sure that my staff has a good culture? There's all these other interesting, fun, engaging things that can happen once we have the lead generation and the sales figured out.
Awesome. So I think this is a good transition. Dave, I'd like to go further into Avadel Agency and how you're helping business owners. So maybe start by just telling us a little bit more about the agency and what you do.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I do a lot, Adam, is I go, what's the biggest point of leverage? What Avadel does is they work with B2B companies, so businesses selling to other businesses. And what do they all need? They all need more new business development meetings. And so we're an outsourced sales development rep firm. And what that means is we book meetings directly on your calendars that you want with your ideal customers. The ways that we do that are so straightforward that some people get turned off by it, Adam. Just being honest with you, it's really funny. So a lot of people right now, they're like, well, I want to use LinkedIn, or I want to do cold calling, or I want to do social media advertising. All those things can work. However, for B2B, what we find all the time, the most efficient way to do it is cold email outreach. I know it's not boring, it's not sexy, but it works. And then creative direct mail follow-up. So I don't like to send something boring in the mail, like a pamphlet or a trifold. We send things in the mail that really make our clients stand out. So an example, we'll send an AI robot handwritten note. It looks like it's a real handwritten note from somebody on your staff, and then it gets sent to someone's doorstep. Well, that's very thoughtful and meaningful, and I think, wow, you did something very kind for me. Little do they know, we work with a company out of Boston called Ignite Post. They do that for us. We ship it out on our client's behalf. We also have another vendor called Better Than a Letter. They're based in Fort Worth, Texas, and we send out things like piñatas that come outside of a box, or a message in a bottle that comes in tubular mail. And the reason why we do those are they're really memorable. I've actually, years ago when I was doing this for my first company, I would send those to people, and then I'd show up to their office, their physical location at them, and they would have the message in a bottle or the piñata sitting on their conference room table. And they were like, we just love this. We thought this was so fun. This was so unique. And so what it does is that Avadel sets you up with meetings with large companies or small companies or everything in between that you can then sell to. And so Avadel's main job is to get you that meeting, and then our clients take the meeting from there. One of the things that's been interesting, though, Adam, is that because we take so many of these cold calls for all 8 of my companies, we've gotten pretty good at them. But most companies don't take calls like this. They're mostly working off referrals. Sometimes they'll have some inbound leads from like Google AdWords or something of that ilk. And so we put together a free sales training that we do every Thursday for our clients to show them how to actually close these deals, because we close them at an unreasonably high rate simply because we have some very tried and true practices and formulas that yield results not only in booking meetings, but also in closing deals.
Man, that makes so much sense. And for those that have never, that just haven't explored working with a company like yours, like take me through kind of like the user experience, because a lot of people have not, at this point, maybe they, like you said, they might have their couple people in house for what you're talking about. So if it's $1 million or less in business, we'll say, in revenue that they're doing, then maybe they have a couple of cold callers, maybe they have a BD like out there networking or things like that. But what does it look like to work with a company like yours that has it, kind of systematized? Like, give us a peek into what a relationship like that could look like.
Yeah. So one of the things that we quickly identified, Adam, was out in the marketplace, 83% of internal BDRs, so business development reps, and SDRs miss their quota every month. 83%. Like, that's an absurdly high number. The average cost for a BDR or SDR to not only pay their salary, their benefits, but also to give them the technologies that they need in order to find success, on average in the U.S. costs $100,000. So what we set out to do was, we said, look, no one in our industry is offering guaranteed meetings. So we want to offer a guaranteed minimum number of meetings booked for the year. And we're going to do it cheaper than if you hired someone in-house. So when you work with us, it's kind of like there are, I had a colleague years ago, Adam, that put it this way. Every marketer is a professional, right? And just like every baseball player that is playing post-college is a professional. And there's a difference between a guy in single A, a guy in double A, a guy in triple A, and a guy in the major league. They're all pro baseball players. There's just a difference. So what I would say is the difference between working with a team that you have in-house and working with an outsourced firm like what I have, it's kind of like having someone that's a double A, triple A, single A versus having a major league baseball team working on your account. We're professionals. This is all that we do at Avadel is literally book meetings on people's calendars. And so we've been able to craft some very, very helpful heuristics that help us define what we could do to help have our clients be successful. I'll give you a couple examples, Adam, because they're going to help anyone that's listening to this right now get better results out of their internal team if they're using one, if they're doing it on their own, or even if they're working with another SDR firm. So one of the first things that I say is take your case studies and simplify them down to a sentence. So most people have case studies that are several pages, and we will take those and put them down to a sentence. And here's the formula for the sentence that books meetings. We worked with X company. We got Y result in Z time. Okay, we worked with X company. We got Y result in Z time. So what this could look like is, we worked with a leading telecommunications company, because sometimes you can't name drop with some NDAs. They saw a 12% increase in their returning customers in the first 45 days of running our campaign, right? We found that if you say 90 days or less for that Z time, it gets the best results. So one of those things is just taking your case studies, shorting them down, making them as small as a sentence really makes a big difference. And then the second thing, Adam, and this is a thing that is like become our bread and honey, is creating what we call is an outrageous offer. Something that sounds too good to be true, but really isn't, right? So there are so many examples that are out there. One of my favorites is Costco's $4.99 chickens, right? They've got whole rotisserie chickens that still cost, to this day, $4.99. Mm-hmm. What they did with those was, though, they put them towards the absolute back part of the store, so you have to walk through the entire store to get to them. They lost $20 million on these chickens last year because they're selling them at a loss. But they put the chickens next to other high profit margin items like wine, other prepared foods, beer. And so what this does is people inherently, they walk past something and they go, oh yeah, Bobby and Suzanne are coming over later this week. I should pick up some chips and salsa. Oh, and maybe I should get some charcuterie boards. And so they make more money off of that because they have an item that's, idyllic. And so we've done this with all of our companies. It's a thing that we've done with one of the companies that I own, Adam. It's a flight school. And you can do a 30-minute flight for $49.99. Go do what we call a discovery flight. Go see if it's something that you'd be interested in. All of our competitors charge at least $200 to do that. So our cost per acquisition went way down, and our close rate actually was just as good as it was when we were charging $200. And we're putting our competition out of business, and we're growing exceptionally fast because we came up with an offer that sounds too good to be true. And in reality, it works.
Wow, that's great. It makes so much sense, and to hear you say it and the way you explain it, I know there'll be some business owners and people that are listening to this that are like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, and I didn't know that about the Costco chickens. They get me every time. I didn't even know it. They get me. You're right. You get me to walk in, I go get my chicken, and then before I leave, it's a $400 carton. I just wanted to go get a couple little things. Oh, that's right. Good. They got me, Costco. You won again. It's okay, Dave. Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you, Dave, it has been great having you on the show, and I know we're basically just scratching the surface on your content, what you have to offer for business owners. So I'll leave you with this final question, two-part question. First part is, what type of business owners and businesses do you find normally get the most value out of working with you and your team? First part of the question, and then second part is, how do people connect and get in touch?
Yeah, so really anyone that is selling B2B is the first thing for Avadel. And typically what we look for is someone that has a monthly recurring revenue software, product, or service that's at least $2,000 a month, or they have an annual recurring revenue value of around $20,000 or more. That tends to be where it works out really easily. And then that could be a SaaS product, that could be another marketing agency. We have a lot of those. We even work with cannabis companies. Like, there's a lot of different industries that we represent. We have 120 different clients right now. So there's a lot that we can help with in that space. And then as far as if you want to reach out to me, you can shoot me an email, David@Avadel, Avadel.agency. And in fact, Adam, if you're cool with it, I'd love to throw out a freebie to your listeners if that's okay.
Oh, please do. We like freebies. Do it.
So if you found this conversation interesting and you're in a space where you need some B2B meetings booked, you can email me, David@Avadel.agency, and just mention the title of this podcast in the headline of the email and say, hey, Dave, I'd like to take you up on your 3 meetings free offer. And my team will book you 3 meetings free. We'll get you set up with an onboarding. We'll put you through the whole process. You'll get to see how we work and how things like our SDR firm run. And then if after the first 3 meetings you don't want to continue, that's fine. And if you do want to continue, great. We can talk about that too. But 3 meetings free is always a good deal.
Oh, that's great, and I love it. And you're doing exactly what you said to do. And I love it. What I love about what you're doing is you're practicing what you preach. So I was expecting you, after you say that you need to create some type of offer, to have. If you would have left this call without, or this interview without an offer, I'd be like, oh, Dave, what happened? You missed it. But you didn't miss it. You're right on cue. So that's awesome. And so thank you again for coming on the show. And to the audience, appreciate you tuning in as always. If this is your first time listening to a Mission Matters episode or engaging with the platform, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, you know, how they're doing in business, what they're doing, and really what we can all learn and gain from listening to that content. If that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Dave, thanks again for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, Adam. Thanks so much.